Hello everyone, today I Lavanya Puri
And I, Archita Jain.
from 180 Degrees Consulting, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya College. We are here to talk about how to solve a case study interview, a structured approach in our very first YouTube video. Subscribe to our channel for more such consulting related videos. So, Archita, what do you think is a case study? It's pretty common these days and has become the buzzword in the industry, right?
Yeah, right. A case study is an authentic business scenario similar to the one the firm regularly handles with its clients. In interviews, the candidate is asked to study the problem, perform analysis, and render advice on how to handle the scenario.
Depending on the industry the consultancy serves, the candidate may be asked to demonstrate how the advice might be implemented and show specialized technical proficiency as well.
Yeah, there has been a sudden shift. Why do you think interviewers are choosing to opt into case studies for recruiting suitable candidates?
I feel case studies have enabled the recruiters to evaluate a lot of skills of the candidates. It also enables the interviewers to evaluate how well the candidates are able to bring unique solution metric to various problems and how can they help in value addition to the company. This also helps the interviewer evaluate the creative thinking of the candidate as well.
How candidates interact with interviewer also provide insight into what sort of relationship they will have with their senior managers. They are looking for evidence that candidates can communicate effectively with executives and build durable, trusting business relationships with them.
So, what do you think case interviewers essentially look for?
At the case study interviewer stage, the major questions that the consultancy will want you to answer will include: are you someone they would want on their team and can depend on for insight, energy, and contributions? Are you inherently curious, a quick learner, and eager to learn about things even if they aren't particularly interesting to you? Can you think on your feet and adapt to a changing conversation? Do you come across as presentable, poised, and confident in front of clients, most of whom are senior managers? And at the end, can you make presentations that are clear, relevant, logical, and actionable?
So, what are the prerequisite knowledge that the candidates must have before sitting for a case interview?
Before sitting for a case interview, you must be sure of the following. First thing, no polarization. Having an unbiased approach towards the situation and not letting your personal viewpoint interfere with your working. Example, anyone who is biased towards any particular food preference restaurant will not be able to give a sound judgment around the best food spots at any place.
Second of all, approach based answering. Interviewers analyze your approach to solving the problem instead of how accurately you were able to give an objective answer. For example, let's suppose your interviewer wants you to ascertain the number of SUVs in the country. They'll judge you on your approach, that how well you have covered all the points and how you are structuring your thought. They hardly care about your final answer.
Third of all, be knowledgeable and know your disruptions. Candidates should have some prerequisite knowledge about the market and industry and should be updated about different things going around right now. Anyone who knows the disruptions going on in the industries have an edge definitely.
Lastly, storytelling. The candidate should be able to convey their thought process in a story like manner that can lead to better communication with their recruiter in terms of explaining their solution metrics.
Now let's dive into how we can crack a case study. It's just 5 simple steps. Let's get go into those one by one.
1. Summarize the question. Sometimes the question is short: how do we increase sales at the campus bookstore? Other times the question is long and involved and is filled with data that comes at you as if from a firehouse. It's difficult to capture all that information in your notes, so the first step is to summarize the question. That way, if you missed something or wrote it down wrong, the interviewer will correct you before allowing you to move on. It puts you and the interviewer on the same page before beginning, thus keeping you from answering the question wrong. Summarizing the question shows the interviewer that you listened. Make sure you streamline the summary. Don't repeat it back word for word. If there are numbers in the problem, always repeat the numbers because you're not sure whether they are going to be relevant and you want to make sure you have got it right. Also, get into the habit of quantifying related numbers as a percentage. This is the way that consultants and senior managers think, and it's how they want you to think as well.
So, second step, verify the objectives. You can bet that when consultants first meets with client, they always ask about objectives and goals. What are clients' expectations and are those expectations realistic? In the client's minds, what constitutes success? Even if the objective of case seems obvious, there always a possibility of an additional underlying objective. So you, the interviewee, should say, one objective is to raise profits. Are there any other objectives that I should know about? If the interviewer says no, higher profits is the only objective. You just focus on that objective. If there is an additional objective, you may need to break the case into two and tackle one objective at a time. If you don't ask about other objectives or goals and there is one, the interviewer will have to feed you that information during the case and you will lose points. By asking, you might receive key information that will affect the way you lay out your structure.
Third, ask clarifying questions. These are questions to ask only when you don't understand something or need additional information to lay out your structure. An example might be if it's an entering a new market case, a good clarifying question might be why does the company want to enter this market? Or if you have tasked to raise revenues by 10%, a clarifying question might be what have revenues done for the last 3 years? You ask questions for three reasons. One, to get additional information. Two, to show the interviewer that you're not shy about asking questions. And three, to turn the case into a conversation. The key is to ask broad, open ended questions that help you narrow the information at the start. Because as the case progresses, you lose your right to ask these sweeping questions. The reason is you may give the impression that you are trying to get the interviewer to answer the case for you. The case scenarios will guide you in asking these questions.
Fourth step, label the case and lay out your structure. This is by far the toughest part of the process, and you may want to take a moment at this point to think about the structure. About 30 to 90 seconds of silence here may save wasted time later in the interview. You have decided which case scenarios to work with, and you have asked a few broad questions that you have given you information you need to form a logical response. Because you have studied the scenarios, you can quickly go through the bullet points in your mind and decide which are the most relevant to this particular question. You then just need to tell the interviewer how you plan to proceed. Keep in mind that you are not married to your structure because new information is constantly added as well as twists and turns in the case. Your structure could stand through the whole case or it might become obsolete rather quickly. A structure is, given the limited information you have, what would you analyze and in which order to solve this problem?
You want to make sure that your structure is MECE or mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. This is a consulting term that is thrown around a lot. All it means that there shouldn't be any overlap in your structure. Once you draw your structure, turn your notes towards the interviewer and walk him through your thought process. This brings him into the interview and makes him feel less like an interviewer and more like a client.
Now, the fifth step is state your hypothesis. Consulting firms and only consulting firms care about a hypothesis. They would like you to state a hypothesis within the first few minutes of the case. Usually, after you lay out your structure, I know that it seems crazy to give them an answer to the case before you have any information. But the reason consulting firms like it is that when they go into a company, they often don't know what the problem is. So they state an initial hypothesis and try to prove it. Chances are they are going to disprove the first five, but it narrows the scope of the problem. For example, if you get a profit and loss case, you might say, my hypothesis is that profits have fallen because costs have risen, that it is something that you can try to prove as you move through the case. If you disprove it, you will want to update your hypothesis as you proceed through the case. The advantages of stating a hypothesis upfront are that it will help you ask the right questions, make your analysis more linear, and force you to focus on issues that you can either prove or disprove. It also helps you identify which structure to use, thus defining the starting point.
I have known plenty of clients who receive job offers without ever stating a hypothesis. Think of it as icing on the cake. If you can remember to state one, they'll love it. If you forget, though it's not the end of the world, but because the interviewers are so competitive, you'll want to take every advantage. A simple trick to remind yourself to state a hypothesis is to slightly write the letter H in the middle of your first page of notes before you go into the interviewer. That way, you are writing out your structure, you'll see the H and be reminded to offer a hypothesis. In real life, consultants can take up to 2 days to form a hypothesis, but you have about 5 minutes. So don't worry if your hypothesis is wrong. It eliminates one possibility and allows you to restate your hypothesis and focus on another aspect of the case. Think of the process as one of the elimination.
This was all from us today. Stay tuned till our next video, which is regarding consulting case study frameworks. Until then, don't forget to check out our other social media handles. Thank you.